up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Hoopers Lounge with Max and myself. We are in the midst of the conference finals. One team has already clinched their ticket to the NBA Finals, whereas two other teams have a crucial Game 6 tonight. We may have our NBA Finals decided tonight, or we might be seeing a Game 7 in the conference finals in one of the most anticipated, hyped up series the NBA has ever seen. Conference finals have given us a lot to talk about, and we are here to break it all down. Before we do that, though, we'll start with some news around the NBA. A couple of the final awards have been released, and we'll start with the Coach of the Year, which was taken home by Joe Mazzulla of the Celtics. Yes, the Celtics had a disappointing playoff exit, but this whole year is supposed to be a rebuilding year without Tatum, and yet the Celtics still won 50 games and were the 2 seed. Max and I both predicted this towards the end of the year that Mazzulla would be the one taking this home. So little pats on the back for us there. But any thoughts on Mazzulla taking home the award? You agree with the decision despite the early playoff exit?
Yeah, I think all these awards, it's hard to separate the regular season from the playoffs, obviously. But like you said, I mean, when we talked about it, a month or two ago, we both picked Mazzulla. The logic made sense back then, and it still makes sense to me now. Gap year for the Celtics, many people thought coming in. He got Jaylen Brown to play the best year of his career, individually. The role players were really good, even though they didn't have, Porzingis and Holiday from their championship roster. So yeah, I thought Mazzulla was great this year. The only way you can kind of justify him not winning is the playoffs, and I think that's unfair to take away what he did in the regular season and what he accomplished. Because heading into the playoffs, this team was a top 3 favorite to win the entire championship. So I have no doubts that they made the right decision with Mazzulla, and I think they got it right for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. You look at the Indiana Pacers and what happened after their superstar suffered an Achilles injury. They were uncompetitive all year. They were among the worst teams in the league. Not saying Boston would have been that bad, but they weren't expected to even be a contender in the East. They weren't expected to be anything more than like a play-in team at best. And here they were sitting at the number 2 seed. I think that's just a testament to, first of all, Jaylen Brown for having the best year of his career, but also the system that Mazzulla brings just gives each team he's on an incredibly high floor. They're going to be competitive no matter who they put around and who they surround Mazzulla with, as long as they have shooters, because Mazzulla will live by the 3 and die by the 3. He died by the 3 in the postseason, but he lived by the 3 in the regular season, and that's why he took home the award.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And there were a lot of coaches this year that definitely had an argument. I don't think this was a runaway by any means, but I do think Mazzulla had the best case.
Yeah, let's move on to the All-NBA teams, which also were released, I think, just 2 days ago. And, as you can tell by Max's reaction, there were some interesting inclusions on the third team, to say the least. There were no surprises on the first team. Shea, Luka, Wemby, Joker, and Cade Cunningham. Second team, I don't have the list up right now. I'm working on that, but no surprises there. It's the third team that we want to talk about. The All-NBA third team featured one Chet Holmgren. An absolute disaster class. I have no idea. By the way, Chet Holmgren over Scotty Barnes. I need to point that out. Scotty Barnes is an absolutely unbelievable snub. I think he had a better argument for being on the second team than being off the teams altogether. And the fact Chet got over him is unreal. But let me get the All NBA list pull up, Max. Let me hear some Chet slander. I think we all need that right about now.
Yeah. First of all, Chet's a great defender. I'm just gonna throw that out there. But there are a lot of other great defenders in the league that don't sniff third team All NBA. Like, you can be a great defender, like, for example, Rudy Gobert is a great defender. That guy's nowhere near the third NBA team at this point in his career, right? Like, nowhere near all team NBA, third, right? Other great defenders off the top of my head, like, in their prime, right? Like, I don't know if Brook Lopez ever made an All NBA roster, but he was a great defender in his prime. Okay, and I don't think he was ever a third NBA, like, he was never a top 15 player in the league. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not in my head where he was. So Chet, like, you can be great at something and still not deserve to be the All-NBA. So I don't really want to slander him because I understand why he made it, but I don't understand how he made it over Scotty Barnes, right? Or some of these other guys. I haven't really looked much into the All NBA rosters, so I don't really know who was snubbed outside of Scotty Barnes because I've obviously agree with you there. Because Scotty's, I mean, I say this a lot on this podcast. There's levels to basketball, and Scotty Barnes is clearly a level above Chet Holmgren. Like that's no doubt in my mind. As a basketball player, that Scotty Barnes is better than Chet Holmgren. So, it's interesting though. Like, does the NBA need to change? I don't even know what the criteria is. Like, how do players get voted for this? Is it player based, media based, coaches based? Like, is that like how they're placed?
I'm sure it's media, but don't quote me on that.
Okay, so media.
Pretty sure it's media voting.
Similar to your theory about the best team in each conference needs 2 All-Stars, does the best team in the league need 2 All-NBA players? Like, is that something that is starting to take effect? Because last year, Jalen Williams made All-NBA. This year, Chet makes All-NBA with the Thunder. I don't know. It's interesting. I feel bad for Scotty because these All-NBA rosters do matter a lot financially for these players that are eligible for the Supermax. Obviously, a big point of controversy. This has nothing to do with Chet, but Jalen Duren is now eligible for the Supermax, but a lot of people don't believe he deserves it because of that postseason run he just had. And so, like, those conversations now, Scotty can't even have those conversations, right? Because he didn't make the All-NBA roster. I don't think that's really fair. I don't really like how that's done because I do think, like, Scotty Barnes should be able to make the same amount of money as Chet Holmgren and Jalen Duren in the NBA. But because he didn't make the All-NBA roster, he's not allowed to do that. That, to me, I don't like that personally because at the end of the day, this is a profession. This is how these guys make money. This is their work. And I don't like that something voted on by outsiders, right? If it is media, determines how much you get paid. Imagine, like, if I was on a panel and I voted how much you could make at your job. Like, that, to me, I don't like that. And so that's kind of my biggest issue with the All-NBA is kind of the voting process, and the consequences of making it or not making it, I think, are too great to leave it all up to media. So I'll have to do some more research on that, but Chet should not have made it over Scotty Barnes. That's really cut and dry to me, honestly. Like, there's no argument for Chet over Scotty to me. I don't see one.
Completely agree with you there. Just to rattle off the teams, then I want to get back to what you were talking about. Second team was Jaylen Brown, Kawhi, Donovan Mitchell, KD, and Jalen Brunson. Third team was Tyrese Maxey, Jamal Murray, Jalen Johnson, Jalen Duren, and Chet Holmgren. So snubs is kind of hard to talk about just because I also don't know who was qualified for the 65-game criteria and who hasn't. I know Scotty Barnes absolutely did, so he's the snub that comes to my mind. But like you said, it's kind of hard to discuss when I don't have that information on games played right at the top of my head. But I have to disagree with you about media voting and player contracts. Because I would agree with you if these players were not already making like game-changing money, right? You're not deciding on how much a player can make. Every player has the same base max contract, which is, I don't know, about, $30 million a year over the course of 4 years. That is your base max. And making All-NBA, making All-Defense, winning MVP, that just adds to that, right? You can't go away from max. You can't make any less than $120 as a max contract. You can only make more. So I see it as more of an incentive rather than, I don't know, taking away from a player, if that makes sense. Because it makes the regular season matter, right? Because if these awards didn't matter for your contract, every player would be playing essentially solely for a title, right? Making All-NBA third team would do absolutely nothing for one's career. Nobody would care about it if this Supermax talk wasn't in play. The reason it matters so much is because, you can make, $75 to $100 million more over the course of 4 years by making the third team. It provides incentive to the regular season through an 82-game slate that might not be there without it. Like, if this was a case where you were making not enough money you needed to live, and then if you made an All-NBA team you could, that's a whole different story, right? But going from 150 million to 200 million as your max, that's not exactly going to change the outcome of one's life, right? You're still going to be all set, cut and dry with 150 million dollars as your max contract. So I think it's a way for players to just make more money because I don't think anybody's going to complain about making 30 mil a year. And if you're good enough, yeah, you deserve to make more than that. And I think this is a good way to reward that. One last thing about the best team having two players. I agree with it for All-Star, and I want to agree with it for All-NBA. The issue is there's no one on the Thunder that really deserves it other than Shea. I mean, Jalen Williams last year I think had a very good argument, but Thunder success aside, he had great stats. He was an impactful two-way player, and he dropped 40 in the finals, right? He's clearly an elite player. Chet Holmgren is not an elite player. He's nowhere close to elite offensively. He is getting shut down in these Western Conference Finals, which we will get to in a little bit. But there is a massive, massive difference comparing J-Dub last year and Chet this year. And really anyone on the Thunder this year. The Thunder were bitten with the injury bug. They played a lot of different players, a lot of different rotations, and they didn't really have that second option all year like J-Dub was last year. So in this particular instance, yeah, I do think it would have been better off if the Thunder only had one representative. I don't think they had a worthy second one at all. And the fact that Chet made it over Scotty Barnes is egregious. It cannot be talked about enough.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to go back to your player contracts point real quick. I agree that it's in place to incentivize players to care about the regular season. My biggest point is that the media should not be deciding who's eligible for said incentives. Not that the All-NBA teams should not provide an incentive. I think that's a little bit of a miscommunication there. I think players and coaches should not decide, that's probably not the right word, but should vote on who deserves to make the All-NBA rosters. Because I think that is one of the more prestigious awards in the NBA right now is the All-NBA teams. And if it, again, I don't know for sure, but if it is all media or majority media, I could see where team success would have a big part in doing that, in like construing your voting. So that's kind of my biggest concern with it. I definitely think the incentives are good. Like I think All-NBA, what it provides to these players is good. I think how players are selected for each team, that's my issue, and I think that's exactly how Chet got in over Scotty's, because a lot of these media said, oh, the Thunder are really good this year. They must have, two All-NBA players, similar to how they did last year. And like you said, Jalen Williams, totally different discussion, but if the Thunder were not the best team in the league last year, I don't think Jalen Williams makes All-NBA roster. So, I mean, that's just, I think, my opinion on that. So I just wanted to touch on that before we move on.
Yeah, I just wanted to look it up real quick. Yeah, the All-NBA teams are selected by a global panel of 100 sports writers and broadcasters. So it is entirely media-based.
Yeah, no, I don't like that.
Before we move on, my question for you, do you not think the coaches and players would have biases towards their own teams and their own friends among the organization, whereas the media might be maybe a more objective standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. But I also think there's a level of professionalism that these guys have, and a lot of these guys respect each other to the point where I don't think that would be an issue. There's also ways to prohibit that. Similarly, players and coaches cannot vote for anyone on their own team and organization. I think that is something that you could put in place. Obviously, you vote for your colleagues and your friends and whatnot. But there's not enough, I guess if you think, what would the difference be in, because Chet had more connections in the league than Scotty, he would get in? Probably not, right? That's probably not the reason why Chet Holmgren got more votes than Scotty Barnes, for example, or across the league. Especially if that you can't vote for your own team and organization is put in place. So, no, I don't think bias at this level is too much of a concern. Obviously, there's going to be bias, but you don't think these sports writers and broadcasters have a favorite team? Like Mike Breen, for example, is a diehard Knicks fan. He's going to be voting for Jalen Brunson every year, right? He's going to be voting for Karl Anthony Towns every year to make all-star rosters and whatever, So the allegiances for sports writers and broadcasters, while they are not as direct as the players and coaches are, obviously, because they're not being paid by those organizations, I still think that is not as big of an issue as you may think it would be.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good point. Let's wrap up our All-NBA discussion and move on to the conference finals. And we're going to start off with the Eastern Conference because that one's already over. We already have our finals represented from the East. And for the first time since 1991, the New York Knicks and Madison Square Garden will be featured in the NBA Finals, as Max predicted all the way back in September when we did our preseason predictions. So give it up there. That is definitely worthy of some applause. Taking any finals team in the preseason, I mean, that's ball knowledge right there. So, and I want to talk about the way the Knicks won too, because it was the same way they won their last series. It wasn't a hard fought series in the slightest. The Knicks were down by 20 game one. They came back. They took it to overtime. They won, and then the next 3 games were blowouts. It looked like Cleveland almost gave up after that game one. It looked like they lost all morale and all hope that they could even win after just 1 game. So, Max, what do you think about your finals team, your preseason finals team, making it this point? And do you think they have a chance at all against the Western Conference representative?
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to answer the second question first. Absolutely, they have a chance. And that's because of the confidence they will be having heading into the finals. A combination of confidence and rest is going to be the Knicks' success to winning here, because I believe, we'll get to the West in a little bit, but I believe this series is going 7. So you're getting another 8 quarters of basketball between the Thunder and Spurs, I think, before they even see the Knicks, right? And the Knicks, I mean, some of these stats are insane. So they have the largest margin of victory heading into the finals in history. It's like 20 points per game they're beating teams. It's insane. They've had the most dominating run from a point margin victory in NBA history heading into this point. Absolutely insane. They've only lost 2 games in this entire playoffs, and each game was by 1 to the Atlanta Hawks. They've lost 2 games by a combined 2 points this entire playoffs. Like, that is dominance. And some people will point to, oh, they avoided Boston. Oh, they avoided Detroit. Yeah, but they had to play the teams that beat those teams. So I don't care about that argument at all. Like, if you think Boston was that good and Philly beat Boston, wouldn't you think Philly is at least just as good as Boston at that time? And then what did the Knicks do? Literally broomstick their asses off the court. And I want to talk about the game 4s. Down 3-0 for both Philly and Cleveland. To throw that performance in front of your home crowd is embarrassing. Embarrassing with your season on the line. And the Knicks laughed in your face while they ended your season. That's literally what was happening. And so, shout out to the Knicks, because during this Eastern Conference Finals run, how easy they were making it look against Cleveland, I seriously considered if they're the best team in the league right now. Like, right now, today, like, the Knicks look like the best team in the league. I know they're not playing a team of the caliber of the Spurs and the Thunder, but the way they're playing right now, how they're playing as a team, the confidence they're playing with, as I mentioned earlier, like, yes, they absolutely have a chance. I think they have a better chance against San Antonio just because of the experience. I think the way Brunson is playing, like, Brunson right now is on another level. Like, he's taking his game to another level in the playoffs, which he always does. OG and Bridges picked it up really big time in the East Final, which I was impressed with. And the Knicks, shout out Mike Brown. He actually uses the bench in the playoffs. This is something that Thibodeau did not do. And shout out Mike Brown for just looking at the bench and be like, oh, we actually have some good players out there. Like Mitchell Robinson gets some minutes. Jose Alvarado, you get some minutes. Jordan Clarkson, he's not doing much, but at least he's giving your starters rest. Like, Thibodeau wouldn't even do something like that. So shout out Mike Brown, too. He's an amazing coach. And Cleveland, I'm really interested to hear. This is kind of how I want to send this over to you. As a Warriors fan, I am very happy that Cleveland just got embarrassed, because I think they have just taken themselves out of the LeBron sweepstakes after that performance in the East Final. Why would LeBron want to go to Cleveland after what he just watched in the Eastern Conference Final? I really don't know. I don't know why you would want to go to that team that has zero fight, zero dog in them whatsoever, to at least fight in front of your home crowd with your season on the line. Like, you were 4 wins away from the NBA Finals, and that's how you treated your fans? That's the product you put on the court? Embarrassing. So, as a Warriors fan, I think Cleveland just eliminated themselves from the LeBron sweepstakes. So what do you think about that, and what do you think about this series, as a whole?
So I'll get to Cleveland in a little bit. Just a couple things I'm going to touch on the Knicks. One, I said in an earlier episode that Mike Brown did not feeling like Tom Thibodeau did. I would like to issue a sincere formal apology. That may have been my coldest take of the year because wow, Mike Brown has raised this team ceiling to a level I didn't think the Knicks had it in them. I did not think the Knicks would ever get to this point. I did not think a Jalen Brunson-led team could get to the NBA Finals, but here we are. And like you said, it was after one of the most dominant stretches, not just in playoff basketball history, but one of the most dominant stretches of play in the history of basketball. I mean, you were talking about the Game 4s. You can throw the Game 6 in Atlanta in there. Every single clinch-out game the Knicks have played have been decided by over 40 points. 40 points in what is the other team's most important game of the season, where they're supposed to be fighting for their lives, their playoff lives, and they're getting mopped off the court in embarrassing fashion. So, shout out the Knicks for taking care of business. You shouted out Brunson, the two wings, and Cat. You know who I want to shout out? Landry Shamet, because who would have thought that employing the never miss a shot in a game strategy would work out so well? Landry Shamet in the Eastern Conference Finals made 12 of 13 three-pointers. 12 of 13. That is over 90% on his three-point shooting. I mean, when you're shooting like that, yeah, there's not much the other team can do. That is genuinely one of the most... It's going to go down as one of the most elite shooting performances in a series in NBA history. So, Landry Shamet, let me give him his flowers. He deserves it. And I asked you if the Knicks stand a chance just because a couple weeks ago, we were talking like the East didn't matter. We were talking like the winner of the Western Conference Finals would win the whole thing. And now, after we see this stretch of Knicks play, there is a lot of talk. Oh, are the Knicks the favorite? Are they actually going to win this whole thing? So, I wanted to get your thoughts on that and see how much of a chance you think the Knicks truly had against either of these two Western Conference giants. Moving on to Cleveland, this is a tough situation for them because on paper, they achieved, right? This was the greatest season that they've had in a while. They made the conference finals. They took that step forward that they were never able to make with the Donovan Mitchell era. That acquisition for James Harden clearly benefited them. They went farther in the playoffs than they ever did post LeBron James. So this season would have been a success. All they needed to do was show a little bit of fight against the New York. Even if they got swept, I mean, shit happens. If you showed a little bit of fight, you could hang your hat and say, look at what we accomplished this season. We can do even more. But the way this team absolutely quit on each other, quit on its fan base, quit on its coach. And by the way, let me just say, Kenny Atkinson after Game 3 was talking about how they've won 2 out of 3 analytically. Oh my God, I am shocked he's not getting fired for those comments. Genuinely unreal for a head coach in the NBA to be talking about that down 3-0. But all Cleveland had to do to chalk this season up to a success was show some fight. And they did not after Game 1. So there is going to be a lot more questions than there should be for a team who just made the conference finals. Should be interesting to watch, and I don't think LeBron is completely turned away from Cleveland yet. I mean, conference finals are conference finals, but yeah, seeing the lack of fight this team had, I mean, it's got to be discouraging for people who think the Cavs can win a championship by adding LeBron, and it's got to be discouraging for LeBron himself, who I'm sure wants to win or be competitive in his final year. So definitely something to keep an eye on in the postseason.
Yeah, talk about cold takes. That Atkinson quote after Game 3 was the coldest take of all time. Analytically, we've won 2 of 3. Bro, you choked a 22-point lead in Game 1. There's nothing analytical about that. There's nothing analytical about that. You choked a 22-point lead with less than 8 minutes left in Game 1. There's nothing I would argue that's all coaching. Choking that lead is like all coaching. Like you could argue that. So Atkinson, to your point, that was a terrible quote. I don't think he should be fired, but if he was because of those comments, I would not blame them for it. Very interesting series, and I think to your point, we thought the East didn't matter because I think we thought the Cavs-Knicks series would go a little longer, and that they would kind of beat each other up heading into the finals, and the Spurs-Thunder, and then would kind of be on an equal rest playing level. But I don't think the Knicks are the favorite to win it, because I don't think, one, they're not going to have home court, regardless of who they play, I think, because of regular season record. So they're not going to have home court, and they're not going to have the best player in the series, in my opinion. So those two, combine those two things, I don't think they're going to be the favorite, but they absolutely have a chance to win because of how they're playing right now. And to your point, the Landry Shamet 12 of 13, that to me is all mental confidence. Like, these guys are catching the ball and they know that they're going to give it their all. They're going to shoot, they're going to make the extra pass. They're just playing great team basketball right now, and it's very enjoyable to watch. And I'm very excited to see how they play in the finals. I think the Knicks definitely win one game in the finals. I think they're going to win two. Whether they win 3 or 4, I think that's where you can start to debate. But I think the finals is going at least 6. I think it's going at least 6 with how the Knicks are playing. And I think if you can get a series to 6, I would say you have a chance to win it at that point. So that's kind of where my mindset is on the Knicks. I think they've been the biggest surprise to me of the playoffs, no doubt.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And if Indiana last year could take OKC to 7, I'm sure this Knicks team is capable of taking whoever to 6.
I agree.
Before we move on to the West, I want to talk about James Harden. And on the subject of bad quotes, after the Cavs got mopped by 40 in Game 4, James Harden said, quote, "I honestly do believe that we are the better team." First of all, how can you say that after losing by 40? Like, how can you have the nerve to get up there in front of the media after losing by 40 and say, "Yeah, I really think we were better"? And that's not just losing by 40. That's after you got swept. That's after you got belt to ass all series. But I really think it's time to start questioning James Harden's all-time legacy and where he ranks among shooting guards. Because I think it's going to end up a lot lower. How many times have we seen the same picture? A team on the verge of contention wants to make a big blockbuster move, so they trade for James Harden. He's supposed to be that needle mover that makes them title contenders, and they have disappointing playoff exit after disappointing playoff exit. Year after year after year, it has been the same story with James Harden for all 17 years of his... Well, not all 17. I don't want to blame him for the Oklahoma City Thunder. He was a sixth man. There's not much you can do there. But ever since he joined Houston and became the number 1 option, that has been the story of James Harden's career. One of the more dominant isolation players in NBA history, but he's the opposite of a playoff riser. A playoff faller? A playoff choker? I don't know the correct terminology or whatever you want to say for that. But James Harden is the opposite of what Jalen Brunson is. And I think that really puts his all-time mark in question. I mean, Dwayne Wade is obviously over him. Michael Jordan obviously over him. Just the 2 shooting guards off the top of my head that you can make clear cases for. And I'm sure there are many others that, have an argument to be better than James Harden in the all-time rankings. I don't know. Kobe, I didn't say. Kobe's definitely better than Harden. I just think this loss specifically really tarnishes James Harden's legacy and really cements that, yeah, he's nothing more than a playoff faller. He doesn't come through when the lights are brightest. So,
yeah,
unfortunate for the Beard.
I agree. I'll go back to the quote first. You cannot, he used the word honestly. You cannot honestly think you're better when you lost 4 straight games against the same team. That's like not possible. A team like Detroit, for example, that lost in Game 7, they can go home thinking to themselves, damn, we played trash tonight, but I still think we're better than Cleveland, right? That was a hard-fought 7-game series. Like, you can go home and think to yourself, we had a better year than them. We played them good for 6 games, and then in Game 7, we just collapsed, and that was our own fault. They didn't beat us. We just beat ourselves, whatever. After a sweep, and it wasn't, like you said, a competitive sweep, an ass beating. The 2018 Cavs got swept by the Warriors in the finals, and that was a better series than what I just watched. And the talent gap of those two teams in 2018 was significantly greater than the talent gap between the Cavs and the Knicks in this series. Okay, so I don't want to hear anything about, honestly, I thought we were better. Harden, there's nothing honest about that. That's just a lie. You're just lying to the whole world. Like, you can't think that. And if you do think that, you need to get checked for mental disabilities. Okay, that's where I would end that discussion. Back to his all-time legacy, I do want to cut him some slack because he is one of the greatest scorers of all time. And speaking of the KD Warriors, he did lead a team closest to beating them, other than Kawhi. But there were some injuries in that series, so I don't really count that. James Harden did take the Rockets against the KD Warriors to 7. No one else did that. Okay, Kawhi did beat them in the finals, but there were injuries, so that's kind of different. That would be the one thing where I could maybe point to. Like, if KD never joined the Warriors, does Harden win a ring in Houston? Maybe. We will never know, but maybe. But this recent stretch of his career where he is that needle mover, like you said, the trade piece, it has been dumpster fire after dumpster fire after dumpster fire. And at some point, I think teams should realize that, right? Like, James Harden provides you nothing on defense. He's not the best locker room guy from what I've heard, right? Like, he's not a guy that when he's playing bad is still going to put his head down and work for his teammates, right? When he's playing bad, the body language is bad. That feeds off to his teammates, right? So, yeah, I agree with you. His legacy is definitely in question. I wanted to defend him a little bit because his OKC and his Houston tenure, even though he never won a ring, he was a special player in those years. And I think post-Houston Harden is where you can start to critique him. I think that is where I would start to really, because you're supposed to be a vet at that. Like, after Houston, you are a vet at that point, and it's just been downhill from there. And I forget what was the last thing. Oh, Draymond Green's podcast. I thought this was a very interesting take. People were clowning Harden for getting cooked in game 1, like every possession down the stretch. And Draymond Green said that it is not James Harden's job to guard Jalen Brunson in the fourth quarter. And a lot of people didn't like that because, it's Clown Harden season and, like all he has to do is get one stop and they don't choke a 22-point lead. But if you watch the tape, and I think this is where, as a team, Cleveland didn't have a lot of fight. The amount of switches Cleveland just willingly did instead of fighting over a screen was impossible to watch. Like, if that was Draymond Green, right? If Draymond Green was Dean Wade guarding Brunson, do you think he's going to let James Harden switch onto Jalen Brunson in the fourth quarter? No shot. No shot, right? So I actually thought that was a great point of defending Harden. It's like, Harden's job is to score. The only reason Dean Wade is getting playing time is to guard Brunson. So if you're not guarding Brunson, why the hell are you on the court? Right? Like, why are you out there? And I thought that was a really interesting take after game 1 that I didn't hear a lot of people say. And I want to get your thoughts on that because it's not that I agree 100% with Draymond because Harden does need to get a stop, right? If we're going to switch, then Harden needs to at some point get a stop. But also the wings of Cleveland that were tasked with guarding Jalen Brunson have to show a little fight and get over a screen. Or Harden you need to tell Harden to get up and trap and get the ball out of Brunson's hands, right? You need to do something different than just willingly let Harden get cooked for 12 possessions in a row. And that's where I made the point about you can make the argument that's all coaching, right? That choke is all coaching. At some point, like, get Harden off the court. Put Max Strus in there and have him guard the screener or something. Like, get him off the court. So I thought that was another interesting way to not defend Harden, but it's not all his fault, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It is his fault, but it's not all his fault. But that quote after game 4 was egregious. It was terrible.
Not all his fault. I completely agree with that. Because I'm not about to defend James Harden for being an absolute traffic cone on defense.
No.
Like you said, he needs to get stops when the time comes up.
But his teammates don't help him either.
Exactly. As a coaching staff, how do you go 5 straight possessions watching Jalen Brunson work one-on-one against James Harden, getting good look, getting easy buckets, and not think, okay, let's change something up. Like you said, let's send traps. Let's get the ball out of Brunson's hand. Let's send a double when he catches it to help Harden out. Let's sub Harden off and get a better defender in because we still have Donovan Mitchell, who's supposed to be an offensive weapon himself. He can carry the offense for a little bit. There were a lot of things that Cleveland's coaching staff could have done that would have won them the game. Instead, they were like, we got a 20-point lead. It'll be all right. And little do they know, it wasn't all right. Here's a question for you. We were talking on the subject of James Harden's all-time ranking. Would you take Klay Thompson's career over James Harden's career?
Yes. Yes. His career, yes. Individually, James Harden is a better player than Klay Thompson. But
okay, yeah, agree. But that's like the better
career
greater than debate.
Yes.
In the greatest of all time debate, would you take Klay over James Harden?
Yes, I would.
I think I would too, which is kind of crazy. I never thought I would ever be saying that 5 years
And that's
ago,
okay. Yeah, like,
here we are.
That's not a knock on Harden too. I also don't want to say that because yes, he could have won a ring, right? He maybe should have won a ring here and there, but maybe Klay's a bad example because he got to play with Steph and KD and Draymond his whole career, but I understand what you're saying. Like, a better question to me would be like, would you take Danny Green's career over James Harden?
No.
Okay, I wouldn't either, but Danny Green's won how many championships? Like, Danny Green's won...
Fine, but Klay has all-stars, all-NBAs.
Mm-hmm.
He was a superstar, right?
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying.
In this type of argument.
Would you take... this is diabolical. Would you take J-Dub's career over Harden?
Right now, no. But if J-Dub gets another ring, a couple other all-star appearances, yes, that's definitely an argument that could be made.
Yeah. Okay. I would agree. I would take Harden over J-Dub right now, career-wise. Yeah, I would take Klay, too.
On the subject of J-Dub, I think that is a perfect time to go into our Western Conference Finals. Anything else you want to say about the East before we move on?
No. I'm happy for the Knicks, though. The Garden atmosphere in Games 3 and 4 is going to be insane, and I promise you they will not quit on those fans like we watched the Cavs do. They will not quit. You're going to have to
completely agree.
You're going to have to outplay the Knicks for 4 games to win this series. No doubt in my mind. They are not going to beat themselves the way they're playing.
The Knicks are looking absolutely dominant right now, but if any team can challenge them, it's the 2 teams left in the Western Conference. They have been the 2 best teams in the NBA all year in the midst of an absolute classic series. Game 1, willing to say, that was one of the greatest basketball games I have ever watched in my life. The amount of plays, the amount of times I jumped out, I was yelling in my bed, I was excited, I was moving around. That game had me... I don't know, that game reminded me why I love the game of basketball so much. That was truly an awesome game, and what has so far been an awesome series. But right now, after Game 5, the Thunder are up 3-2. Game 6 is tonight. So, Max, how did the Thunder get to this point where they're up 3-2, and what do they need to do to get the job done tonight and return to the finals?
It's simple. It's my guy, Jared McCain. He's been the 3rd best player in this series behind Shea and Wemby. He's outplaying De'Aaron Fox by a country mile right now. He's, I would say, on the same level as Castle, but I feel like he's been playing better overall. And, I think he's been the 3rd best player in this series, especially since A.J. Mitchell got hurt and Jared McCain got more minutes. I feel like that is kind of where the series shifted. They kind of found a matchup that the Spurs cannot figure out right now, and that's Jared McCain. I mean, he's a walking 20-piece off the bench right now. And he started, I think, in Game 5, his first career playoff start. Dropped 20. He was the 2nd leading scorer for the Thunder in his first career playoff start. So Jared McCain's been awesome. That would be where I would start. Shea is playing like the MVP that he is. He's had Game 1 was rough for him, but I think since then he's really picked it up. Fox to me has been the biggest disappointment, in this series. It feels to me that when he's off the floor and whoever replaces him is on the court, mostly Dylan Harper, but sometimes it's not him, that the Spurs just look a little faster. And I don't know if that's because Fox is still dealing with that ankle injury. Like, I don't know if he's 100% or not. But I think, like you said, game one was, to me, game four, the Spurs played great. But game one, the Spurs played really good basketball, and they didn't even have De'Aaron Fox. So he, to me, I think needs to pick it up for the Spurs to win this series. And tonight, in particular, we need a Wemby masterclass tonight, I think. He's going to have to take over the game. Game 5, I was not impressed with his aggressiveness. Like, that guy needs to take more than 15 shots in a playoff game. To me, he needs to be getting 20 to 25 shots minimum. And shout out the Thunder. They're actually guarding him pretty well after, game 4 and game 1, obviously the outliers, right? Game 1, he was a monster. But the 3 games the Thunder have won, I actually think defensively they've guarded Wembanyama really well, like as good as you can. And I want to give them credit there too. It's what great teams do, right? When they get punched in the mouth, instead of trying the same thing over and over again, they have switched things up on Wembanyama. They have tried different matchups. They have tried different things, and right now it seems to be working. It's a back and forth series like we anticipated. But those are kind of my thoughts right now. The one problem I have with the series, and I knew I was going to have a problem with it, is the refs and the flopping and the constant frustration from the fans about how the Thunder play basketball, and really how I want to talk about the end of Game 5 in particular. What did you think about the hits that Jared McCain took with less than a minute left from 2 guys that haven't seen the court in 3 months? That just absolutely light his ass up in the last minute. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on that, because I don't think it's dirty. People are saying it's dirty. I don't think it's dirty. The Plumlee one was kind of dirty, but not. I still think that's legal in playoff basketball, right? It was a foul. They called it. Good call. Get your ass up and play basketball, right? But I honestly, it's funny how the Spurs complain about the flopping and then they come out and do that to Jared McCain. Like, what are you supposed to do in that instance? Like, you can't have it both ways, right? You can't have them swallow their whistle and not call everything and then run a Mack truck through Jared McCain's back at the end of the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I don't really know how to interpret it, and I've seen people online, debate about it, really. So I'm interested on your thoughts there on the refs and the whole flopping situation.
And honestly, I didn't think it was dirty at all. I thought that was exactly what the Spurs needed to do. I have seen the discourse of it being called dirty online, but the way I see it, and the quote I've seen going around social media a lot, is if the Thunder are going to fall anyways, if you're going to get fouls called on you, get your money's worth. If Mason Plumlee is going to have a foul call in because he ran into Jared McCain, yeah, run into him with your whole body. Make him feel that. Make it hard for him to get up. Make it so Jared McCain is going to think twice the next time he flops with minimal contact like he's done a couple times this series, right? Those are the kind of hits that make a player think twice. And at a certain point, yeah, you just need to send your enforcers in to get the message across. I don't really have any particular problems that Plumlee or Biyombo did. Here is another sequence of events I want to talk to you about. Game 5, the Thunder went on a run to open the second half. The Spurs matched it with a run. They were down 10, had the ball midway through the third quarter. The refs missed an obvious goaltending call on the Thunder, which should have been a bucket for the Spurs. The ball then goes off a Thunder player's foot, a very, very obviously, clearly visible in the replay, but they call it Thunder ball. It's okay. Mitch Johnson looks at the replay, sees it go off the Thunder player's foot, and is like, okay, I want to challenge this. But no, the refs don't give him the challenge, and the play resumes. Mitch Johnson is pissed off because, yeah, that should have been his possession. It should be Spurs ball right now. He tried to challenge, and it wasn't given for whatever reason. And then he was teed up afterwards. Teed up for making a very, very valid point. And then the result of that possession, after the technical free throw, the Thunder hit a 3. That is at minimum an 8-point swing right there in what was a 10-point game. Now, would the Spurs have won that game with if that call went in their favor? Probably not. The Thunder, I think it's safe to say we're the better team that game. But when you can point to a sequence like that in almost every game the Thunder play, where not just an individual call, but an entire sequence goes in their favor. And that is what makes it so, I think, frustrating for NBA fans to watch, because it's not just a ticky-tacky bad call here and there. It is an entire stretch of play that straight up changes or drastically affects the outcome of it. And I think that's where the whole complaining where the fans lies. I mean, Shea's flopping has been horrendous this series. I have seen clips in China of people wearing Shea Gilgeous-Alexander jerseys that'll mock and flop like as they're taking a layup. That'll shoot a layup and then like act like they got shot by a gun. Because that's exactly what he does. I mean, it's an exact replica. We have seen other foul baiters in the past. We talked about Harden. Harden's a notorious foul baiter, right? Trae Young was a foul baiter in his day. But we have never seen foul baiting transcend borders. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's foul baiting has gone international. That is like, this is becoming his legacy, and I truly think, like, how can you be okay with this as a player? How can you take pride knowing this is how you're going to be remembered and how you are currently known around the world? I mean, that's not a good look, in my opinion.
That's a simple answer to me. The last question is because he's winning. Who cares about my legacy? Yeah, I'm winning. I'm winning MVPs. I'm winning championships. My home fans love me. Why do I care what the outside world thinks? That to me is like, it's bad, Alex. That sequence you mentioned was terrible, awful. Teeing up a coach for being denied a challenge. What? In what world? In what world does that happen? NBA refs, I've believed this for a long time, are the worst refs of any professional sport, and I count baseball. Baseball umpires are better than NBA refs, and baseball umpires get a lot of shit. Okay, they get a ton. Basketball referees are soft. They cannot handle criticism, and for some reason, I love sports to the point where I will never believe they are rigged. But you cannot watch this series and not think to yourself that it's 100% not rigged, right? There's a 1% chance in your head that you watch this series and you think to yourself, yeah, this ref has money on the Thunder. 100% has money on the Thunder. Like, I don't think that's what's happening, but I also can't 100% rule it out because of what I'm witnessing on my television. Like, it's that bad. It is that egregious that it's making me question whether this is rigged or not. And talk about a flopping masterclass out of Shea. If it's Thunder Knicks in the finals and we get Shea versus Brunson, Brunson is not as bad as Shea, but my God, 7-game series of that is gonna make the casual fan punch their TV. Like, they're literally going to want to throw it out of their top story window. That's how bad it's gonna be. So Adam Silver, to me, has how Adam Silver is attacking the tanking problem with all these new rules and all this, really, like, he is meeting tanking head on with a onslaught of rules and consequences and punishments, whatever. He needs to do the same thing for flopping because it is ruining the NBA, and especially ruining it when your best team and the best player on that team use flopping as a tactic to win. It is embarrassing. And I don't know who to blame. I don't know if I blame Shea. I don't know if I blame the refs. I don't know if I blame the rules. I want to blame them all, and it's just so hard to watch. It's terrible. It's awful. It's so bad. There was another play. There was another play where Dylan Harper was like full court pressing McCain. He gets elbowed in the throat. No call. Harper's behind the play. Catches up to McCain. And McCain just stops right in front of him. Harper, being the elite athlete he is, also stops. Doesn't touch him. And McCain flops. Foul on Harper. while he's holding his throat because he can't breathe. He just got hit in the Adam's apple with an elbow. Bro can't breathe, trying to complain to the refs, but he's holding his throat. Like I reffed college or intramural basketball, not D1, but I reffed intramural basketball. I think I could do just as good of a job as these professional refs. I'm not saying I'd be better, but I know I could do just as good as what they're doing. I know I could tee up Mitch Johnson for not giving him a challenge. That's easy. I know I could do that. Anyone can do that. Oh, you want a challenge? Nope, Tech. Send your ass. You're out. I could do that. I could do that for free. You don't even have to pay me. I could do that for free. It's easy to do that. You're supposed to be better than all the other refs. You're professional refs. And you're ruining the best series of the playoffs. You're ruining it for everybody. It's terrible. It is terrible. And I feel bad for the Spurs. But I don't know who to blame. It's bad. And I don't want to blame the players on the Thunder because I think they're taking advantage of a opportunistic situation with
I have the amount of discourse this is getting among the fans makes Adam Silver look at this in the offseason and be like, okay, we need to change this.
They have flopping rules in place, but it's like the refs forget it's a rule. Like, the falling after shots to me is the worst. Like, if you get hit on the arm as you're shooting, I think you're allowed to sell the call by kicking your legs, like moving your hand or saying something out loud, right? Like, hey, like, and one, whatever, right? Like, getting hit and doing that, I think that is a different conversation. But when you're not getting hit and you're falling on your face like a 3-year-old to draw a call, like, there literally, Alex, are Shea compilations of flopping. Like, it's so bad.
And on the flip
it's
side,
so
there
bad.
are also compilations of Isaiah Hartenstein basically assaulting Wembanyama.
I know.
Grabbing his arms, holding him down, making sure he can't jump up and grab rebounds. Like, no fan can watch this series and definitively say the referee is objective. It looks like it's biased, and that's not.
I know, it's terrible. It's terrible.
I gotta say though, I've been a Wemby defender all year, but Wembanyama looked mentally and physically fatigued in Game 5, and I don't know if that was a Thunder game plan. Right, the Thunder have been putting a lot of bodies on Wembanyama all series. He's been guarded by Caruso. He's been guarded by Jay Will. He's been guarded by Chet, by Hartenstein. So he's had a lot of fresh bodies that he's had to work through these 4 games, as well as a hard-fought 6-game series against the Timberwolves last time. This is his first ever playoff run, and I just think there's a level of mental fatigue that comes with inexperience at this point. I mean, Game 5, Wemby, he was struggling to get positioning in the paint. He was settling for too many jumpers and too many contested shots on the outside, rather than doing what worked the first 4 games and just reaching up over everybody and slamming it home because he's taller than everyone and he can. That's how he had those elite performances in Game 1 and 4, and then Game 5 he settled for too many jump shots. I think that is mental fatigue. I think that's inexperience, and that was a big part of why I wasn't high on the Spurs as contenders this year. Not necessarily contender. I thought they could make a deep playoff run, but I didn't think they could win a title because of that inexperience, and I think it's showing. I think it showed itself very well in Game 5. So, something is going to have to change in Game 6 at home with their season on the line. Wemby is going to have to just decide he's going to be aggressive and take the game over. You said the Spurs need a Wemby masterclass, and I completely agree with that because he really hasn't gotten that much help this series. I mean, Champagnie had a breakout game in Game 5, but none of the other elite players on the Spurs, Fox, Castle, Harper, have necessarily stepped up and been that reliable second option the Spurs need. The offense has truly been centered and focused around what can Wemby do for us. And Wemby is going to have to step up. I think he's capable of it. Somebody else on the Spurs team is going to have to step up and have that performance we know they're capable of if it's going to go to 7. Because this Thunder team is just too deep. Shea can have a bad game and they can still find a way to win. I mean... Yeah,
I know.
Somebody on the Spurs is going to have to step up.
I do think this, for what it's worth, I think the Spurs are going to win tonight, and then I think the Thunder are going to win Game 7 at home. That's kind of where my mind is at right now on this series. I do think we're going to get a Wemby masterclass, and I love your point about the fatigue because as Wemby plays with a lot of emotion as well, and I think that drains him too. Like in game one, what Wemby had to do for them to win that game in game one, that had to drain him mentally, physically, emotionally, obviously. And then game four, season on the line pretty much, down 2-1. Wemby pours it all out on the court again, which drains him for game five. So I do agree with that take. I think that's a great point by you. With someone who plays with as much force and as much emotion as Wembanyama, a masterclass, as we like to call it, is bound to drain someone who exerts that much energy on the court. So I do think that is something to keep an eye on here. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think what the Thunder are doing without J-Dub and AJ Mitchell this series, though, is insane to me. Like, they just find ways to win, and like you said, even if the refs were good last game, the Thunder still outplayed the Spurs in Game 5. So it's hard to say the Spurs are losing this series because of the refs. I would phrase it more as the Spurs are getting the wrong end of the whistle this series. I feel like it's just a much better way to phrase it. Because the Thunder are without arguably their second and third best player heading into this series. And they're still finding ways to win games against the second best team in the league. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, as much as we hate on the Thunder and the refs, I gotta give credit where credit is due. It seems like they have a guard that steps up every game. It's Alex Caruso dropping 31 game, and it's Jared McCain dropping an efficient 25 the next. Then it's Cason Wallace getting 3 steals, and then it's AJ Mitchell returning and dropping 25 himself, right? What I just said the Spurs were missing is exactly what the Thunder are bringing. They are bringing that secondary scoring option that complements their superstar in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And that is why I think they're going to take home the series tonight in 6. I think the Spurs team has had a great run, but I think this young team is mentally, physically worn down. I mean, like you said, Wemby plays with a lot of emotion. That does have to wear you down over the course of an intense playoff run. I don't think it's a bad thing at all, by the way. I love that Wemby plays with emotion. I think it makes him a better player. And that game 1 that he had, I'm willing to say, was one of the greatest playoff performances in the history of the NBA.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was absolutely legendary stuff. And that was example A, exhibit A, on why I think this man has top 3 of all time potential. I think he can legitimately be that good. And I think game 1 is a perfect example of why. But he's 22 years old at the end of the day. You do not expect 22-year-olds to lead your team to a championship. You expect them to struggle in the playoffs and learn what it takes to win. And that is what Wembanyama is doing right now, right? It's difficult to win a 7-game series against an experienced team. It's even harder when this is the defending champs with the MVP who won 67 games in the regular season. The fact that the Spurs are even taking it to 6 to begin with, I think they can hang their hat on that. Because this was a team that I don't even think you had them making the playoffs in the preseason. So they have surpassed any and all expectations up to this point that anyone had for them. No matter how their series ends tonight, they will be proud and happy of the season they had, and they will be an absolute force to be reckoned with next season. But I do think Oklahoma will close the deal and finish the job tonight.
For what it's worth, I had them losing to the Thunder in the first round of the playoffs in the 1-8. So I had them in the play-in tournament. So I guess that's kind of playoffs, kind of not really. So yes, you're right. They've exceeded all expectations and then some in my book.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about the Western Conference before we move on to our final segment?
No, let's get into the crunch time segment here.
All right, Game 6 tonight. It will be on NBC at 8:30. This might be your last chance to watch Wemby this season. Do so if you can. It'll be fun. But let's move on to our final segment. Max came up with this idea. Let me know before the episode. I thought it was a really cool idea. I'm really excited to see where he goes with this, and I'll let him explain it to you all.
Yeah, so we've done a Keep 3, Cut 5 on this channel before. On this show before. This is a little bit of a twist, though. We're doing player morphs. So the idea is for Alex to combine this all-time player with this current player skills, right? However he may interpret that. I want to try and keep this more to an individual player basis versus a career. I want to keep this more to skills as opposed to, legacies. So that is where the ideas come, and then he's got to keep 3 and cut 5 player build. So this is going to be very similar to like if 2K, if you were building a player, right, you would be taking skills from these players. So it's combining one retired all-time player with one current player. Do you have any questions, Alex, before we get started?
I'm ready to go.
All right, first one. I think I know where we're going with this first one. Luka Doncic and Michael Jordan.
Well, that's kind of a difficult one. I mean, Luka's one real weakness is defense, and Michael Jordan is one of the greatest perimeter defenders in basketball history. So this to me just sounds like Luka with no weakness. I don't really think you can cut that. I think you have to start that. So
yeah,
I would be the only one I can think that. I mean, Steph Curry is the one current player that can really raise the ceiling of a past player. So that one is the only one that I think can even compete with Luka and Michael Jordan. Because Luka and Michael Jordan clone, that's stupid.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah. And for your information, there are no repeats, so you will not get Luka or Michael Jordan the rest of the way, if that makes sense.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Next up, Magic Johnson and Jason Tatum.
I'm leaning towards cut because Magic Johnson's kind of his calling card is that he was a tall guard. Jason Tatum does not really add anything besides better shooting to Magic Johnson's skill set. I think there are players that would add much more than Tatum would, and vice versa. I think there are players that would add much more to Tatum than Magic Johnson would. Although I do gotta say, a playmaking Tatum would be stupid. I'm leaning cut now, but get back to me on that one. Get back to me.
That's not how this works. You have to choose because you don't know what the next one is.
This is blind. Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to say cut then. This has to go.
Yes, you have to. Sorry. Yeah.
Curry is basically a lock for a second one, and then the third one I have to get someone better than Johnson and Tatum.
All right. So after 2, you've kept 1, cut 1. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't say this was blind, but you have to choose before the next one is revealed. Next one up. This one's really interesting to me. Jimmy Butler and Shaquille O'Neal.
Cut. What does Jimmy Butler bring to Shaq's game? Free throws? That's about it. Shaq who can make free throws? Sorry, cut. We can do much better than that.
Wow. I really thought Jimmy's perimeter defense on Shaq would excite you, but I guess not.
No, not as much as Luka with Jordan defense does.
Okay. Yeah, true. But, okay, interesting. All right, so 2 cuts, 1 keep. You're on a good pace here. Next one up, Devin Booker and Tim Duncan.
I like this one a lot, actually. These are 2 players whose skill sets would go together so well. Devin Booker, an offensive force, in a lethal jump shooter, whereas Tim Duncan is more fundamental on the offensive side. He can hold his own, but he's more known for his defense, where Devin Booker at times struggles. This is a really good pairing. I'm gonna keep this. You know what? I'm gonna keep it. And that basically saves my third spot for whoever you pair with Steph. But genuinely, I think Devin Booker with Tim Duncan defense, or Tim Duncan who could shoot like Booker, that is one of the best players in NBA history.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good one as well. All right, so you've kept 2, cut 2. So you've only got 1 keep left, and we still got 4 combinations. This next one is stupid. Damian Lillard and Wilt Chamberlain.
Oh, God. Why did I keep Devin Booker? This is a better version of that. Fuck. I have to say my last spot for Steph. I think Steph would raise a player's ceiling so much more than Damian Lillard would. I have to cut this. I don't have a choice. I have to cut this. I would put it over Booker and Duncan in hindsight, but this last spot is reserved for Steph.
Yeah, the Dame and Chamberlain combo is so disgusting.
That's 7-1 Wilt who could shoot, Wilt who could run a sub 2 800 and also drain 40% of his
Yeah.
threes from 30 feet out. Are you kidding me?
You know what my head immediately went to was Wilt Chamberlain hitting the game winner over Paul George from like 37 feet.
Oh my god.
Like
Paul George wouldn't even be able to call that a bad shot because of course. I mean, I would take that over Luka Michael Jordan, just for the record. If this wasn't
I
Bryant,
agree.
that would be
I agree.
right now.
I agree. Yeah. So, all right, Dame and Chamberlain, definitely the hardest cut so far for Alex. Next one up. This one's not as egregious as that one. I thought this one was kind of interesting too. Joel Embiid and Charles Barkley.
Cut. Charles Barkley does not add anything to Joel's game or at least prime Joel Embiid, not injury plagued Joel Embiid, but prime Joel Embiid could do everything that Charles Barkley could do. I don't think Chuck really adds anything besides maybe better rebounding, but that's not really a needle mover. So easiest cut of the video so far.
All right, easiest cut so far. So you've got one keep and one cut left with 2 to go. Alex, how are you feeling? Are you?
I am nervous because there's no way you didn't include Steph Curry. He has to be in one of these last two.
All right.
And the fact that you haven't said him yet, I don't know. I reserved one spot for him, and I haven't had him yet.
All right, next up, Scottie Pippen and SGA.
I'm gonna go cut. I'm gonna go cut here, and I don't feel great about it. But you really made this list without including your favorite player would be kind of insane. This last one, I'm putting all my chips in the table. Steph Curry's going to be included.
Now
you compare Steph with Taco Fall for all I care.
Now
and I would still take it.
Now that you only have one left and you have no choice, I'm gonna let you know that I did not pick this list. These were generated randomly. So
that makes this significantly harder.
I didn't want to tell you that mid-round because you were assuming I made it, and so I wanted to let you go through it. So this next one, Alex, for what it's worth, is not terrible. Okay, this one is pretty good. It's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Trae Young. Not terrible. Not terrible.
Yeah, but the fact that I'm keeping that and I pass on Dame and Will
yeah,
is just
true.
disgraceful. Oh, I cannot believe Steph wasn't in this. Oh, I thought that was so big brain of me to automatically save a spot for him.
No,
Absolutely.
LeBron wasn't on here. LeBron wasn't on here either. I thought for sure he would be. But what I went to ChatGPT, my best friend, ChatGPT, and I asked them to, create 8 of these. I actually asked for 20, and then I picked the ones with, I didn't want anyone with, Alex Caruso. I don't want Alex Caruso in here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I got rid of those, and these.
To be fair, a Wemby Alex Caruso blend would be an all-time.
I feel like you would need more shooting, like Wemby and because you already have all the defense you need with Wemby. I feel like you need
Alex Caruso is
recency bias. Recency bias.
He's been a sniper this playoff.
Wemby,
Don't disrespect the bald mamba.
No, a better player or morph would be like Wemby with like Bradley Beal. That would be stupid.
Yeah.
That would be stupid.
7'4" Bradley Beal.
with Wemby's defensive instincts. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, that would be stupid. But I'm glad you like that idea. So just to recap, out of the 8 we gave, Alex kept Luka and Michael Jordan, Devin Booker and Tim Duncan, and Trae Young and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Not bad.
Don't like that.
You ended up cutting Magic Johnson and Jason Tatum, for which what it's worth, I think that would be one of the most unstoppable players of all time. If you morph those two guys together, I just think that would be insane. Jimmy Butler and Shaq, I agree with that cut, even though I think it'd be interesting. I think defensively, that guy could guard 1 through 5 against anyone. Dame and Wilt, that's a heartbreaker. That is a heartbreaker.
That should have been number 1. That should have been the top of this list, the easy keep.
Joel and Barkley, another interesting one, but they're kind of the same player, so I kind of more or less the same build. And then Scottie Pippen and SGA, I also think was one of the sneaky ones where like that's arguably one of the best offensive players in the league today with arguably one of the best defensive players of all time. Like I think that player individually would be stupid.
If I wasn't doing this blind, I would take the Wilt Dame and the Tatum Magic duos over Book Duncan.
But that's
Kareem and Trae Young.
That's part of the game, though. So I'm glad you enjoyed, and I'm sure we'll be bringing this back in some capacity. Maybe we'll do like current players only or all-time players only, something like that. But I thought you did pretty good, honestly. The three you kept, you could argue, are unstoppable players. So,
Thanks.
Yeah,
it was a good idea. I like the idea on your end.
Yeah, no, I'm always trying to come up with new stuff for the pod. So, anything else you want to add before we wrap this episode up?
No, I think that'll do it. Game 6 tonight should be exciting, but that'll wrap up this episode of the Hoopers Lounge. We will be back with our preview and our predictions for the NBA Finals, either after Game 6 or after Game 7. We'll have to see how long the Western Conference goes, but that'll be our next episode. Stay tuned for our Finals preview, and we'll see you guys then.
Peace out.